Before we dive in, remember to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your support means the world to us. A twist of fate. The widower, the nurse, and a secret from the past. Imagine this. A luxurious charity gala, chandeliers sparkling, champagne flowing, and then a man collapses. "Don't leave me, Daddy. Please don't leave me," cried a trembling young girl, Sophia, her voice shattering the elegant silence that had fallen over the ballroom. Her tiny hands clutched desperately at her father, Edward, as he lay motionless on the polished floor. "I need you to step aside, sweetheart." A firm yet gentle voice cut through the chaos. It was Chloe, a woman in a practical emerald green dress, kneeling beside the unconscious man. Her trained fingers immediately sought a pulse in his neck. "I'm a nurse. I'm going to help your dad. Okay?" Sophia's tear-filled eyes met Chloe's. "Promise? My mommy already went to heaven. I can't lose my daddy too." "I promise," Chloe replied, a pang in her chest at the child's raw vulnerability. Just moments before, 38-year-old Edward Maxwell, a renowned architect, had been feeling increasingly unwell. He was used to working himself to exhaustion, but tonight something was different. His formal suit felt suffocating, and every superficial conversation with donors reminded him of attending these events with his late wife, Amelia, 3 years prior. "Are you okay, Daddy?" Sophia had asked, her turquoise dress matching her eyes, so much like her mother's. "Of course, Princess," Edward had lied, loosening his tie. "Just a little tired." But he wasn't okay. He hadn't eaten all day, lost in the blueprints of his new sustainable project. His mother-in-law, Mrs. Albright, had scolded him over the phone earlier. "Edward, you need to eat. How will you take care of Sophia if you don't even take care of yourself?" Amelia would be so disappointed. Those words still echoed in his head as the room began to spin. He tried to reach a chair, but it was too late. Now, as Chloe Davis meticulously checked his vitals, a small circle of curious onlookers had formed. Chloe, 35, with her practical ponytail, moved with the confidence of years of nursing experience. "Can someone please get some water and sugar?" she called out, not taking her eyes off Edward. "And please, give him some space." Edward slowly regained consciousness, his eyelids fluttering open. The first thing he saw were warm, concerned eyes. What happened?" he mumbled, trying to sit up. "Don't move yet," Chloe instructed, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "You fainted. When was the last time you ate?" Edward blinked, confused. I don't remember. Daddy." Sophia launched herself into his arms, and Edward instinctively wrapped an arm around her. "I'm okay, my love," he reassured her, though his voice sounded weak even to himself. Chloe observed their interaction, noting the wedding ring Edward still wore and the way Sophia clung to him, as if fearing he might vanish at any moment. "We should take him to the hospital for a full checkup," one of the recently arrived paramedics suggested. "No, that's not necessary," Edward protested, sitting up carefully. "It was just a dizzy spell. I haven't eaten properly. That's all." "Mr. Maxwell," Chloe insisted, surprising Edward by using his last name. "As a medical professional, I strongly recommend you go to the hospital." "How do you know my name?" "It's on the guest list," Chloe improvised, though the truth was she'd recognized him from Sophia's striking resemblance to an old photograph she carried in her purse. "At least let them examine you properly." Edward looked at Sophia, whose pleading eyes were identical to Amelia's. "All right, but no ambulance. We'll take a taxi." Chloe sighed, resigned. "At least take my card," she said, pulling a small card from her purse and writing something on the back. "This is my personal number. Call me if you need anything, even just advice. Your daughter needs you healthy." Edward took the card, feeling a strange familiarity in Chloe's face that he couldn't place in his dazed state. "Thank you," he murmured. As Edward and Sophia left in a taxi, Chloe watched them go, discreetly pulling an old photograph from her bag. In it, a younger Chloe smiled alongside a woman who looked remarkably like an adult Sophia. It was Amelia, her best childhood friend, with whom she had lost contact years ago. What would you do if you found out the person you just saved was connected to a lost friend? Would you reveal your secret or keep your distance? Let us know in the comments. That night, in the solitude of her modern but cozy apartment, Chloe turned on her computer and searched for more information on Edward Maxwell. Every article confirmed her suspicions. He was Amelia's husband, her long-lost friend, but what she discovered next sent a chill down her spine. Checking her old email account, she found several unread messages from Amelia, sent in the months leading up to her death. The most recent, dated just 3 weeks before her passing, read, "Chloe, I need to talk to you. There's something important you need to know about the past. Please, respond before it's too late." Chloe closed her laptop, her heart pounding. What had Amelia wanted to tell her? And should she now get involved in Edward and Sophia's lives? Or would it be better to keep her distance? The decision she made would change her life forever. 2 weeks later, Edward sat in the waiting room of City General Hospital with Sophia beside him, idly flipping through a children's magazine. He didn't want to be there, but the dizzy spells had continued, and Sophia's pleas finally convinced him. "Daddy, why do you have to see the doctor? Are you really sick?" Sophia asked, putting the magazine aside. Edward stroked her hair, trying to smile reassuringly. "No, princess, it's just a checkup to make sure everything's okay. Like when you had a tummy ache." "Exactly the same," he assured her, though he was truly worried. He had been working more hours than ever on the company's new eco-friendly project, barely sleeping 5 hours a night. "Maxwell, Edward," a voice called out, strangely familiar. Looking up, Edward met the same eyes that had comforted him the night he fainted. Chloe Davis stood before them, in her nurse's uniform with a tablet in hand. "You?" he asked, surprised. "The lady who helped you at the party," Sophia exclaimed, recognizing her instantly. Chloe smiled, trying to maintain her professional composure despite the coincidence she had orchestrated by specifically requesting to attend to Edward when she saw his name on the list. "What a surprise," she said, guiding them towards the examination room. "It seems fate wants us to keep meeting." As she took Edward's vital signs, Chloe noticed his tension. His blood pressure was dangerously high, and he showed clear signs of chronic exhaustion. "Mr. Maxwell, have you been taking time to rest since the incident?" Edward avoided her gaze. "I have a lot of work to do. I can't afford to rest." "He's always tired," Sophia interjected. "And sometimes he falls asleep on the couch with his work papers." Chloe gave Edward a concerned look. "It's not good for your daughter to have to worry about you." The doctor arrived shortly after, confirming Chloe's suspicions. Edward needed rest, a proper diet, and regular blood pressure checks. He even recommended home nursing visits to supervise his initial recovery. "That's completely unnecessary," Edward protested. "Please, Daddy," Sophia pleaded, grabbing his hand. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself. I don't want anything to happen to you." Edward's expression softened at his daughter's concern. "All right, but only for a while. I could take care of it," Chloe offered, surprising herself with her boldness. "I have experience with home visits, and I already know your case." Edward looked at her with suspicion. "Why are you so interested in helping us?" Chloe swallowed, not ready to reveal the truth. "It's my job, Mr. Maxwell. Besides, your daughter reminds me of someone I knew a long time ago." Over the next few weeks, Chloe began visiting the Maxwells' modern yet somewhat chaotic apartment 3 times a week. The apartment, located in an exclusive part of the city, had breathtaking views but felt strangely empty, as if it lacked the soul that once inhabited it. Slowly, Chloe organized Edward's medication, supervised his diet, and helped him establish more reasonable work hours. At first, he was distant and somewhat irritable, but he gradually began to appreciate her help, especially seeing how Sophia lit up whenever Chloe arrived. "Why is your house so clean?" Sophia asked during one of the visits, while Edward was on the phone in his study. "I like to keep everything tidy," Chloe replied, preparing a salad for dinner. "My mommy was like that too," Sophia said with a note of sadness. She used to say a tidy house is a tidy mind. Chloe's heart skipped a beat. She remembered that phrase perfectly. Amelia always used to repeat it when they were teenagers, an expression she had learned from her own mother. Your mom sounded like a very wise person, Chloe commented carefully. She was, Sophia responded. But Daddy doesn't talk about her much anymore. I think it makes him sad. It's normal for him to hurt when he remembers. He loved her very much. And you? Sophia asked innocently. Do you have a husband or children? Chloe shook her head. No, I live alone. My work takes up a lot of my time. Have you never been in love? The question caught her off guard. Yes, a couple of times. But sometimes love isn't enough for things to work out. Grandma Albright says my mommy was Daddy's soulmate and he'll never find anyone like her, Sophia said, drawing circles on the table with her finger. Do you think that's true? That we can only love one person our whole lives? Before Chloe could answer, Edward appeared in the kitchen. Sophia, don't bother Chloe with so many personal questions, he reprimanded softly. She's not bothering me, Chloe assured him. She's a curious and very intelligent girl. Edward observed the domestic scene before him. Chloe preparing dinner, Sophia helping set the table. For a moment, he felt a pang of normalcy he hadn't experienced since Amelia's death. Are you staying for dinner with us? Sophia asked hopefully. Sophia, Nurse Davis surely has other plans, Edward began, but Chloe interrupted him. Actually, I don't have plans, and I'd love to stay if it's no trouble. Have you ever felt like you found someone who just gets you, even if they're new in your life? Share your experiences below. During dinner, Edward found himself talking about his work with enthusiasm for the first time in a long time. Chloe listened with genuine interest, asking insightful questions about his sustainable designs. My wife was also interested in ecology, Edward commented, stopping abruptly as he realized it was the first time he had voluntarily mentioned Amelia in front of Chloe. I'd like to know more about her, Chloe said cautiously. If you don't mind talking about it. Edward looked at Sophia, who was watching them intently. Maybe another day. It's late, and someone should be getting ready for bed. But I'm not sleepy, Sophia protested, though a yawn betrayed her words. Later, after putting Sophia to bed, Edward found Chloe looking at family photographs in the living room. She stopped at one where Amelia smiled radiantly, holding a baby Sophia. She was beautiful, Chloe commented, unable to hide the emotion in her voice. She was, Edward confirmed, approaching her. But in the last year before she got sick, something changed. She became distant, as if she was keeping a secret that tormented her. Chloe felt a lump in her throat. She never told you what it was? Edward shook his head. She insisted she was fine, but I knew she wasn't. And then it was too late. The silence that followed was heavy with unexpressed emotions. Chloe knew she had to confess her connection to Amelia, but each passing day made it harder to find the right words. Her dilemma became even more complicated when, during one of her visits, she came face to face with Mrs. Eleanor Albright, Amelia's mother. The elegant 60-year-old woman looked at her as if she had seen a ghost. Who are you? She asked coldly, even though Sophia had already explained that Chloe was her daddy's nurse. Chloe Davis, nurse from City General Hospital. I'm supervising Mr. Maxwell's recovery. Eleanor narrowed her eyes, studying her. You look familiar. Have we met before? I don't think so, Mrs. Albright, Chloe lied, though she knew perfectly well that Eleanor had been the one who helped break up her friendship with Amelia years ago. Later that same day, Eleanor cornered Chloe in the kitchen, while Edward helped Sophia with her homework. I don't know what your intentions are with my son-in-law and my granddaughter, she said in a low voice. But Amelia was everything to me, and no one will take her place in this family. I'm just doing my job, Mrs. Albright, Chloe responded, holding her ground. I hope so, Eleanor said, her voice cutting like ice. Because I will personally make sure no one disturbs my daughter's memory. As the weeks passed, Edward's health improved remarkably. With that, the necessary medical visits decreased, but he found reasons to keep Chloe in their lives. Nutritional advice for Sophia, help organizing Amelia's old medications. What had begun as a professional relationship slowly transformed into friendship. Edward finally smiled again during their conversations, and Chloe felt her affection grow for both him and Sophia. But the secret she carried weighed more and more on her conscience, especially when she saw the distrustful glances Eleanor threw her during her visits. One evening, as Edward walked Chloe to the door after a particularly pleasant dinner, there was a moment of tension when their hands accidentally brushed as he handed her coat. "Thank you for everything you're doing," Edward said, using the informal you for the first time. "Not just for my health, but for bringing some normalcy back into our lives." Chloe smiled, feeling an unexpected warmth in her chest. "I enjoy being with you both. Sophia is a wonderful girl. Just like her mother," Edward added, his gaze lost for an instant in memories. Chloe nodded, the weight of her secret more unbearable than ever. Soon she would have to decide. Reveal the truth or pull away before the past caught up with them all. What do you think Chloe should do? Should she tell Edward the truth about her past with Amelia, or keep it a secret to protect their budding relationship? Share your predictions in the comments. "Please, Daddy, you have to come see me." Sophia bounced excitedly around Edward, who was reviewing blueprints at the dining room table. "I'm a tree, but a talking tree." Edward smiled, putting the documents aside. In recent weeks, thanks to Chloe's care, he had regained some of his energy and zest for life. "I wouldn't miss your performance for anything, Princess," he assured her, kissing her forehead. "And can Chloe come too?" Sophia asked, hope in her eyes. Edward hesitated. His relationship with the nurse had evolved into something he couldn't quite define. She was no longer just the professional overseeing his health, but someone who had brought light into his home. "If she wants to and can, I'll ask her when she comes today," Sophia exclaimed, running to her room to prepare her school bag. That afternoon, when Chloe arrived for her regular visit, Sophia greeted her with the news before she could even take off her coat. "You're coming to my play, right? I'm a magical forest tree." Chloe looked at Edward, who shrugged with a shy smile. "I'd love to go, but only if your dad agrees." "Of course," he replied. "In fact, I was thinking maybe we could all go together. The show is this Friday at 6. Chloe felt a mix of joy and guilt. It would be the first time they appeared together in public, almost like a family. And every day that passed without revealing her connection to Amelia made the eventual confession more difficult. Friday arrived quickly. Edward, dressed in an elegant casual suit, waited nervously in the living room when the doorbell rang. Opening the door, he caught his breath for a moment. Chloe was beautiful in a simple but elegant blue dress, her hair loose framing her face. "You look different?" Edward commented awkwardly. "Different good or different bad?" she asked with a smile. "Definitely good," he replied, feeling a slight blush he hadn't experienced in years. Sophia came running out, already dressed in part of her tree costume. "Chloe, you came." At the school theater, parents and family members took their seats, creating a murmur of anticipation. Edward and Chloe found places in the third row. As they waited for the play to begin, Edward noticed the curious glances of other parents. "It's the first time I've come accompanied to a school event since Amelia." He left the sentence unfinished. "I understand," Chloe said softly. "I don't want to cause discomfort." "No, it's not that. It's just that." Edward searched for the right words. "It feels strangely normal, and that makes me feel guilty." The play began before they could continue their conversation. Sophia, as promised, played a magical tree that helped a lost child find their way home. Despite her small role, she acted with such enthusiasm that Edward and Chloe couldn't help but smile. During a particularly emotional scene, when the protagonist child spoke about missing their family, Edward, without thinking, extended his hand and took Chloe's. The contact lasted only a few seconds before both, embarrassed, withdrew their hands. At the end of the play, as the children bowed to applause, Chloe looked at Edward and saw tears welling in his eyes. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "Yes, it's just that." Amelia would have been so proud of her. After the performance, as parents congratulated their children, One of the teachers approached them while Sophia was changing. "Mr. Maxwell, it's good to see you more involved again. And I see you're not alone anymore," she commented with a kind smile. "Oh, Chloe is." Edward hesitated. "I'm a family friend," Chloe quickly intervened. The teacher nodded with a smile that suggested she thought otherwise. "Sophia has been much happier these past few weeks. Whatever you two are doing, it's clearly good for both of them." When Sophia returned, she insisted they go out for dinner to celebrate her performance. At the family restaurant they chose, they truly seemed like a normal family, enjoying a Friday night. Sophia animatedly recounted anecdotes from rehearsals, while Edward and Chloe laughed at her antics. "Can we have dessert?" Sophia asked when they finished their main course. "Of course, you've earned it, theater star," Edward replied. As Sophia seriously deliberated between chocolate ice cream and strawberry cake, Edward looked at Chloe. "Thank you for coming today. I hadn't realized how much we needed this." "You don't have to thank me. I love spending time with you both." "You're not coming as a nurse anymore, are you?" Edward asked, his voice more serious. Chloe shook her head. "I haven't been coming just as a nurse for a while now." That night, after putting Sophia to sleep, Edward invited Chloe for coffee. They sat on the balcony overlooking the illuminated city. "I've been thinking," Edward began, "that maybe it's time to start putting away some of Amelia's things. Not to forget her," he quickly clarified, "but to be able to move forward." "That's a big step," Chloe responded. "Are you sure you're ready?" Edward nodded slowly. "I think so, and I was wondering if you could help me. I can't ask Eleanor. She'd fall apart." "Of course," Chloe accepted, though the idea of handling her old friend's belongings caused her deep anxiety. The following Sunday, Edward brought several boxes from the master closet. They contained Amelia's clothes, books, and personal items, which he hadn't been able to touch since her death. "We don't have to do it all today," Chloe said, seeing the tension on Edward's face. "No, it's fine. It's time." They worked in silence, separating what would be kept as a keepsake for Sophia, what would be donated, and what would be stored in a smaller space. Edward occasionally shared stories about certain objects, and Chloe listened attentively, learning about Amelia's adult life, which she never got to know. "She was a great photographer," Edward commented, showing her an album of artistic photos. "She had a special eye for capturing beauty in the everyday." As they organized Amelia's favorite books, Edward found a small photo album hidden among them. "I don't remember seeing this before," he murmured, opening it. Chloe, who was sorting some clothes, heard his surprised gasp. When she turned, she saw Edward holding the album open to a page showing two smiling teenagers on a beach. A young Amelia, and beside her, unmistakably, Chloe. The world seemed to stop. Edward looked up, confusion and shock evident on his face. "You knew Amelia?" Chloe felt her heart stop. The moment she had dreaded had finally arrived. "Edward, she began, but the words caught in her throat. "You what?" Edward's voice took on a harsh tone. "You've been in our lives all this time knowing who Amelia was? Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I didn't know how," Chloe finally replied, her voice trembling. "Amelia and I were best friends throughout our childhood. We grew up together in a coastal town near Seaside." Edward sat heavily on the bed, the album still in his hands. "Go on." "We drifted apart after a misunderstanding. Something related to my ex-boyfriend. I left to study nursing and we lost contact. I didn't know she had passed away until I researched you after the gala. I found emails she had sent me the year before her death, trying to reconnect with me, but I never saw them until it was too late." Edward closed his eyes, processing the information. "Why did you approach us? Was it out of guilt?" "At first, maybe," Chloe admitted. "But then I met Sophia. I got to know you better, and everything changed. You matter to me, Edward, you really do. How can I believe you now?" The disappointment in his voice was palpable. "All this time, what were you playing at? A replacement for Amelia? A way to atone for your guilt?" "No, I never wanted to replace her. I just wanted to help, to be there for the family of my best friend." "Help?" Edward stood up, his voice rising. By hiding the truth from me, by entering our lives with lies. Have you ever had a secret from your past suddenly surface and change everything? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Their argument was interrupted by a small sob from the doorway. Sophia stood there, tears rolling down her cheeks. Why are you fighting? She asked in a trembling voice. Does Chloe not like us anymore? Sophia, it's not that, Chloe tried to explain, approaching the child, but Edward stepped in front of her. Go to your room, my love. Adults need to talk. No, Sophia cried, surprising them both. I don't want Chloe to leave. It's like having mommy again. Her words struck them like lightning. Edward paled. Sophia, I could never replace your mommy, Chloe said softly, though her heart was breaking. But you make me feel like she was here, Sophia insisted through tears. And Daddy smiles again. Edward scooped his daughter into his arms, hugging her tightly. No one can replace mommy, princess. And Chloe needs to go now. Edward, please, Chloe pleaded, tears forming in her own eyes. We can talk about this. I think you've said enough, he replied coldly. I appreciate your help these past few weeks, but I think it's best you don't come back. Chloe nodded, defeated. She picked up her bag and headed for the door, stopping for a moment to look at Sophia, who was crying in her father's arms. I'm so sorry, both of you, she said softly. She left the photograph of her and Amelia on the table before leaving. Edward stood motionless, holding his sobbing daughter against his shoulder, feeling that all the progress they had made in recent months crumbled like a house of cards. Later that night, when he finally managed to calm Sophia down and put her to bed, he found the child hugging the photograph Chloe had left. Was that Chloe with mommy? Sophia asked softly. Yes, Edward replied. Sophia looked at the photo with fascination. Mommy looks happy, and Chloe too. Why did they stop being friends? Edward sighed, not knowing how to explain something he didn't fully understand himself. Sometimes even the best friendships can break due to misunderstandings. Like you and Chloe now, Sophia said with the simple wisdom of a child. Is that a misunderstanding too? The question hung in the air as Edward turned off the light, kissed his daughter's forehead, and left the room with the weight of the world on his shoulders. The apartment felt more silent than ever. Edward poured himself a cup of coffee and looked out the window at the waking city. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation with Chloe, and although he tried to convince himself that he had done the right thing by sending her away, he couldn't deny the void her absence had left. Sophia had returned to being the quiet, melancholic child she was before. Her smiles were scarce, and every night she asked when Chloe would return. Good morning, Edward. Mrs. Albright's voice interrupted his thoughts as she entered the apartment using her key. Is Sophia ready for school yet? Edward sighed internally. Since Chloe's departure, his mother-in-law had increased her visits, taking more and more control over the family routine. She's finishing getting dressed, he replied, trying to sound more cheerful than he felt. Eleanor put her bag on the sofa and began to check the refrigerator. You need to go grocery shopping. There's nothing nutritious for Sophia. I was planning to go today after work, Edward said. Don't worry, I'll take care of it, Eleanor said in a tone that allowed no discussion. By the way, what happened with that nurse? Did her visits finally end? Edward tensed his jaw. Yes, she wasn't needed anymore. Good riddance, Eleanor murmured. She never gave me a good feeling. Too present. Good morning, Grandma, Sophia greeted, entering the kitchen in her school uniform, her hair half-combed. Oh, my dear. Come, let me fix your hair. Eleanor sat her down and began to brush her hair with energetic strokes. Ow, Grandma, it hurts, Sophia complained. Beauty costs, sweetie. You have to look presentable. Edward watched the scene with discomfort. Amelia had always been gentle when combing Sophia's hair, turning the task into a moment of connection. Chloe also did it that way with patience and affection. I'm going to finish getting ready, he said, abruptly leaving the kitchen. At work, Edward couldn't concentrate. His colleagues noticed his distraction, similar to what he had shown after Amelia's death. "Everything okay, boss?" Javier, his assistant, asked after Edward reviewed the same blueprint for the third time. "Yes, just a little tired. You'd been better these past few weeks. You even smiled once in a while," Javier commented with genuine concern. "Did something happen?" Edward shook his head, unable to explain how he had allowed a stranger. "No, someone connected to Amelia's past, to enter so deeply into their lives only to discover she had hidden the truth from them." That afternoon, instead of going straight home, Edward drove to City General Hospital. He stayed in the parking lot, debating internally whether he should go in and look for Chloe. He needed answers to better understand what had happened between her and Amelia, but after 20 minutes, he started the car and drove away. Pride and pain were still too strong. What Edward didn't know was that, at the same time, Chloe was leaving through the back door of the hospital. She had requested a transfer to the pediatric department, avoiding any possibility of encountering Edward if he returned for his checkups. "I need a change," she had told her supervisor, who looked at her curiously. "That's strange. You seem so happy with your current cases." Chloe had forced a smile. "I just need something different." In reality, every day was an effort not to call Edward or stop by his house to see Sophia. She had gotten too involved, allowing her feelings to cloud her professional judgment. And now she was paying the price with a pain she hadn't anticipated. Meanwhile, life at the Maxwell household continued, though with a constant feeling that something was missing. Eleanor had intensified her presence, reorganizing the house according to her criteria and subtly criticizing Edward's decisions. "Amelia always served vegetables with every meal," she commented while preparing dinner. "Amelia let Sophia choose her own clothes," she mentioned when selecting the child's outfit. "Amelia would never have allowed so much mess in her home," she murmured while cleaning. Each comparison was a small cut in Edward's confidence, making him feel that he would never be enough to keep his wife's legacy alive. One afternoon, while Edward helped Sophia with her homework, Eleanor appeared with a proposal she had been hinting at for weeks. "I've been thinking," she began, sitting across from them, "that maybe it would be easier for everyone if you moved in with me. My house is bigger, there's a garden for Sophia to play in, and I could take care of her while you work." "Grandma, could I bring all my toys?" Sophia asked, surprisingly interested in the idea. "Of course, my love. And we could decorate your room however you like." Edward closed the math book. "Eleanor, I appreciate the offer, but we're fine here." "You're fine," Eleanor pressed. "Edward, look at you. You're exhausted. You barely eat. And Sophia needs a stable maternal figure." "I have my daddy," Sophia interjected, resting her head on Edward's shoulder. Eleanor smiled condescendingly. "Of course, darling. But your daddy works a lot, and a girl needs a woman to guide her." "Chloe guided me," Sophia murmured so softly that they barely heard her. The comment tensed the atmosphere. Eleanor pressed her lips into a thin line. "That woman was only here for a few weeks, Sophia. She wasn't really part of the family." Edward saw his daughter's eyes fill with tears. "I think it's time to finish homework," he said, trying to change the subject. "Eleanor, let's talk about this another day. What do you think of Eleanor's actions? Is she trying to help? Or is she controlling? Let us know your thoughts in the comments." That night, as Eleanor prepared to leave, Edward confronted her at the entrance. "I appreciate everything you do for us, but I need you to respect my decisions about how to raise Sophia." Eleanor straightened up, her expression hardening. "I just want what Amelia would have wanted. She would have expected me to take care of you. Amelia would have expected me to be a good father, and that's what I'm trying to be." "A good father?" Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Bringing strangers into the house, allowing Sophia to get attached to someone who then disappears?" Edward took a deep breath, holding back a sharp retort. "Good night, Eleanor." As he closed the door, the weight of the past few weeks fell upon him. Maybe Eleanor was right. Maybe it had been a mistake to let Chloe into their lives. Days turned into weeks. Sophia's 9th birthday was approaching, and Eleanor insisted on organizing a big celebration at her house. "It will be wonderful," she promised. We'll invite all her classmates. I'll decorate the garden, and I'll even hire a small show. Edward didn't have the energy to argue, so he agreed. Eleanor threw herself into the preparations with enthusiasm, consulting Sophia minimally about what she wanted. On the day of the party, Eleanor's house was unrecognizable. Pink and purple balloons decorated every corner. An extravagant candy table dominated the living room, and in the garden, a bouncy castle awaited the children. What do you think, Sophia? Isn't it perfect? Eleanor asked, beaming with pride. Sophia nodded politely, though Edward noticed her enthusiasm was forced. This kind of ostentatious celebration wasn't his daughter's style. She preferred more intimate gatherings and creative activities. As guests arrived, Sophia participated in games and smiled for photos, but Edward sensed her discomfort. During a quiet moment while the other children played, Sophia approached him. "Daddy, can we invite Chloe?" The question surprised him. "Sophia, we already talked about this. Chloe is busy with her job." "But it's my birthday," she insisted. "And I miss her." Edward knelt to her level. "I understand you miss her, but sometimes people come in and out of our lives, and we have to accept that." Sophia looked down, disappointed. "Like mommy, right?" The words hit Edward like a physical punch. "Yes, like mommy, though in a different way." Sophia nodded solemnly and returned to her friends. Edward stood still, feeling he had failed his daughter in some fundamental way. Later, when most of the guests had left, Sophia led Edward to a quiet corner and pulled a drawing from her pocket. "I made this at school," she said, handing it to him. "It's for you." Edward unfolded the paper to find a drawing of 3 people holding hands. A tall man with dark hair, a girl with pigtails, and a woman with a ponytail and what looked like a nurse's uniform. All 3 were smiling under a bright sun. "It's us," Sophia explained. "You, me, and Chloe. Happy." Edward felt a lump in his throat. "It's a very beautiful drawing. The teacher asked us to draw what makes us happy," Sophia continued. "And I drew this. Do you like it?" "I love it," Edward replied, hugging his daughter. "You're an amazing artist. Mommy would be happy to see us happy, wouldn't she, Daddy?" The simple question contained a wisdom Edward hadn't wanted to face. "Yes, Princess. Mommy would want us to be happy." This is a powerful moment. What do you think Edward will do next? Will Sophia's drawing be the catalyst for him to seek out Chloe? Let us know your thoughts. That night, after everyone had left and Sophia fell asleep in one of the bedrooms at Eleanor's house, Edward decided to look for an old photo album to show his daughter the next day. He wanted to remind her of some happy moments with Amelia. As he searched in Eleanor's closet, he found a box he hadn't seen before. To his surprise, it contained letters and diaries from Amelia that were supposed to be in his apartment. "What are you doing in there?" Eleanor's voice startled him. "Why do you have these things?" Edward asked. "I thought they were stored in our closet." Eleanor approached defensively. "I was just protecting them. These are my daughter's memories." "And they are my wife's memories," Edward corrected, his voice hardening. "And they belong to Sophia too." "I am preserving Amelia's memory," Eleanor insisted. "It's my duty as her mother." Edward opened one of the diaries and found something that chilled him to the bone. They were letters Amelia had written to Chloe, but had never sent, dated years before the ones Chloe had mentioned. In them, Amelia expressed regret for their estrangement and revealed something disturbing. The problem with the boyfriend had actually been a misunderstanding that Eleanor had deliberately caused. "What is this?" he asked, showing her the letters. "You separated Amelia and Chloe?" Eleanor paled, but quickly regained her composure. Those girls were too close. Amelia was too impressionable, too easily influenced. Chloe dragged her into all sorts of situations. "They were best friends," Edward said, rage growing inside him. "And you deliberately separated them." "Amelia was all I had after her father died," Eleanor finally exclaimed, her facade cracking. "I couldn't bear the thought of losing her to anyone. Not her friends, not even you sometimes." Edward looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Do you realize what you did?" Amelia spent her last year sad and distracted. Was it because of this? Did she find out what you had done? Eleanor nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. She found some old letters. She realized my intervention. She was determined to find Chloe and fix things. But she got sick before she could, Edward concluded, the pieces finally clicking into place. He stood there, holding the evidence of the damage caused by Eleanor's fear and selfishness, feeling his world transform once more. Amelia had died carrying that burden, that regret of a friendship lost due to her mother's manipulations. With sudden clarity, Edward knew what he had to do. He gathered the letters and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Eleanor asked, alarmed. "To find Chloe," he replied. "I owe her an apology, and Amelia owes her an explanation." "You can't, it's too late." "For Amelia, it's too late," Edward said firmly. "For us, it's not." Can you believe Eleanor did that? This changes everything. How do you think Chloe will react when Edward finally finds her and reveals the truth? Predict in the comments. Upon arriving at the hospital the next day, Edward discovered that Chloe no longer worked in the same department. When he finally managed to speak with her supervisor, he received the news he feared. Nurse Davis requested a temporary transfer. The woman informed him. "She's working on a community health program in a coastal town about 3 hours from here. Do you have the address?" Edward asked desperately. "I'm sorry, I cannot provide that information." Edward left the hospital frustrated but not defeated. If Chloe was in a coastal town, he had a good idea of where she might be. Amelia had often spoken to him about the small town where she grew up, a place Chloe would surely remember too. With renewed determination, Edward decided it was time to embark on a journey, not just physical but emotional, to find Chloe and, perhaps, also find some peace for all of them. "Are we going to look for Chloe? Really?" Sophia's eyes sparkled with excitement as Edward packed a small suitcase for the weekend. "Yes, princess, if you still want to see her." Edward carefully folded some shirts, trying to appear more confident than he felt. "Of course I do." Sophia jumped on the bed, making the perfectly folded shirts wrinkle. "And Grandma Eleanor? Is she coming with us?" Edward shook his head. "No, this trip is just for the two of us." Since the night he discovered the letters, his relationship with Eleanor had changed drastically. The initial confrontation had given way to a painful but necessary distance. Eleanor, confronted with the truth of her actions, had tearfully promised to give them space while she processed her own guilt. "You look so much like your mother when you smile like that," Edward commented, watching Sophia gather her favorite toys for the trip. "Is that good?" she asked, pausing for a moment. "It's wonderful," he replied, approaching to hug her. "You carry the best of her with you." As they loaded the car, Edward checked the map on his phone for the 10th time. The small coastal town where Amelia and Chloe had grown up was about 3 hours east of the city. According to what he had learned, the community clinic where Chloe probably worked served several fishing communities in the area. "What if she's not there?" Sophia asked, buckling her seatbelt. "Then we'll keep looking," Edward replied with determination. "Important people deserve our effort." The journey began in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The road stretched out before them, taking them away from bustling the city towards increasingly rural landscapes. As they drove, the horizon opened up, showing expanses of fields and eventually the first glimpses of the ocean in the distance. "Daddy, what was Mommy like when she was young?" Sophia asked after a while, breaking the silence. Edward smiled, grateful for the opportunity to talk openly about Amelia. For too long, pain had made her memory a difficult subject. "Your mom was brave and creative. She loved to photograph everything she found beautiful and always found beauty where others didn't see it. Like Chloe, she always finds pretty things in my drawings, even when I make mistakes." "Yes, I guess they're alike in that way," Edward admitted. "That's probably why they were such good friends." "Oh, why did they stop being friends?" Sophia asked, as curious as ever. Edward considered how to explain the complicated situation. "Sometimes the people who love us are afraid of losing us. Grandma Eleanor was afraid that your mom would pull away from her, so she did something that separated your mom and Chloe. Do you know what she did? She made them believe that one had hurt the other. Edward sighed. Adults make mistakes too, Sophia. Big mistakes sometimes. Like you when you told Chloe to leave, Sophia observed with the disconcerting sincerity of children. Edward nodded, feeling the weight of his own actions. Exactly like me. I got scared when I found out Chloe knew your mom and hadn't told us. But now we're going to fix it, right? I hope so, Princess, I hope so. As they approached the coast, the landscape transformed. Palm trees swayed in the sea breeze, and the air coming through the windows had that unmistakable salty scent of the ocean. For Edward, it was easy to imagine Amelia and Chloe growing up here, running on these very beaches, forming a friendship that should have lasted a lifetime. When they arrived at the main town, Edward stopped the car in front of a small restaurant. Let's grab something to eat and ask about the clinic, he suggested. The place was simple but cozy, with wooden tables and colorful tablecloths. An elderly woman served them with a warm smile. What can I get for you, travelers? She asked kindly. Whatever you recommend, Edward replied. And if it's no trouble, we're looking for the community clinic. Do you know where it is? The woman looked at them with greater interest. Are you here to see Dr. Ramirez or the new nurse? The nurse is an angel. She's helped us so much since she arrived. The nurse, Sophia said quickly. Her name is Chloe. Ah, Chloe. The woman smiled widely. Yes, that's her. She arrived a few months ago. Very dedicated, that girl. The clinic is at the end of the main street, next to the school, but today is Saturday. You'll probably find her at the South Beach, where she does checkups for the fishermen returning. Edward thanked her for the information with genuine gratitude. As they ate, he noticed Sophia was unusually quiet. Nervous? He asked softly. She nodded. What if she doesn't want to see us anymore? You said mean things to her. You're right, Edward admitted. I said very unfair things to her. That's why I need to apologize first, before expecting anything else. After eating, they followed the directions to South Beach. It was a small, sheltered bay where several fishing boats were unloading their catch of the day. In the distance, Edward distinguished a figure in a nurse's uniform, talking to a group of fishermen. His heart quickened. There she is, he murmured. Chloe! Sophia cried, unable to contain herself, letting go of her father's hand and running across the sand. Chloe turned around at the sound of her name. Her expression changed from surprise to absolute shock as she saw Sophia running towards her, with Edward following a few steps behind. Sophia! Edward! She murmured, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. We found you! Sophia exclaimed, throwing herself into her arms. Chloe hugged her automatically, but her eyes were fixed on Edward, who was approaching more slowly, with an indecipherable expression. What are you doing here? She asked when she finally found her voice. How did you find me? We've been looking for you everywhere, Edward explained, stopping in front of her. The hospital only told us you were in a coastal community program. I remembered Amelia talking so much about this town that I thought you might have returned to your roots. Chloe lowered Sophia, but kept a hand on her shoulder, as if she needed to make sure it was real. Why were you looking for me? Because we missed you, Sophia replied simply. And because Daddy has something important to tell you. Edward looked around, aware of the curious glances of the fishermen. Can we talk somewhere more private? Chloe nodded, still dazed. I'm done for today. We can walk along the beach if you like. They began to walk along the shore, Sophia running ahead to collect shells, giving them some space to talk. You look good, Edward commented after a moment of awkward silence. This place suits you. Thank you, Chloe replied. It's familiar, comforting in a way. Another silence. The waves broke softly against the sand, creating a soothing rhythm. I found the letters, Edward finally said. The ones Amelia wrote to you years before the ones you mentioned. She never sent them. Chloe stopped, surprised. What letters? Edward told her about his discovery, Eleanor's confession, everything he had learned in recent weeks. Amelia never stopped considering you her friend. She was trying to find you before, before it was too late. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. I never stopped considering her my friend either. When she didn't respond to my attempts to contact her after our fight, I assumed she really hated me. I never imagined Eleanor had intervened. Eleanor was afraid of losing her, Edward explained without justifying his mother-in-law's actions. Amelia was everything to her after she became a widow. Just like Sophia is everything to you, Chloe observed, looking at the child happily jumping in the small waves. Yes, Edward admitted. And that's why I understand Eleanor's fear, though I can't forgive what she did. The fear of losing those we love can lead us to make terrible mistakes. Like me with you. Chloe looked directly into his eyes. What do you mean? I reacted out of fear when I found out you knew Amelia. I was afraid that what I was starting to feel for you would be a betrayal of her memory. It was easier to blame you and push you away than to face my own feelings. The words hung between them, loaded with meaning. Sophia came running back, her small fist full of shells and beach treasures. She looked at their intertwined hands and smiled widely. Look what I found, Chloe. It's the same color as the dress you wore at my play. Chloe smiled, grateful for the interruption. It's beautiful, Sophia. Will you keep it as a keepsake? Yes, of our trip to find you, the child replied before running off again. There's something else you need to know, Edward said when they were alone again. Something I discovered by talking to Amelia's old friends and checking her emails. What is it? Chloe asked, intrigued. Amelia named you as Sophia's godmother in her will. Chloe stopped dead in her tracks, completely surprised. What? But no one ever contacted me. The document included a letter expressing her wish that, if anything happened to her, you would be part of Sophia's life, Edward continued. Eleanor must have hidden that part of the will. I never fully reviewed it. I was too heartbroken then. She chose me as godmother even when we hadn't spoken in years? Edward nodded. She must have had some premonition. Even when you two were separated, she trusted you to care for what she loved most. Chloe covered her mouth with a hand, overwhelmed with emotion. I can't believe it. They continued walking in silence, letting the magnitude of the revelation sink in. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reflected on the water. Sophia and I want you to come back with us, Edward finally said, stopping to look directly at her. Not as a nurse, not as a family friend, but as someone who belongs by our side. Edward, I'm not asking you to replace Amelia, he continued, gathering courage. No one ever could. But I believe there's room in our hearts to love again. Differently, but just as truly. Are you sure? Chloe asked, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waves. What about Eleanor? Eleanor is starting to face her own demons. She has promised to respect our decisions from now on. Edward took Chloe's hand decisively. I'm not saying it will be easy, but I think it's worth trying. Sophia returned to them, her small fist full of shells and beach treasures. She looked at their intertwined hands and smiled widely. Does this mean Chloe is coming home with us? Edward looked at Chloe, leaving the answer in her hands. She looked at the father and daughter, feeling that the circle that had begun decades ago on this very beach with Amelia was finally closing. Yes, she finally replied with a trembling smile. I'm coming back with you. Sophia jumped for joy, hugging them both. As the sun set on the horizon, the three walked back along the beach together, beginning a new chapter in their intertwined lives. What an emotional turning point. Do you think Edward, Chloe, and Sophia can truly become a family after all these revelations? What challenges do you foresee for them? Comment below. In the car, on their way to the small hotel where they would spend the night before returning to the city, Sophia fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted by the day's emotions. Amelia guided us to each other, Edward said softly. That night at the gala, it wasn't a coincidence that you were there at the exact moment. Chloe smiled through tears. Amelia was always good at playing Cupid. You helped save us that night, but not just physically, Edward confessed. You helped us live again. When they returned to the city the next day, Eleanor was waiting for them at the apartment. Her expression was a mix of regret and resignation. "So you found her," she said when she saw Chloe enter with them. "Yes," Edward replied simply. "She was going to be part of our lives, Eleanor. Amelia would have wanted it that way." Eleanor nodded slowly, the years of pain and control giving way to a faint acceptance. "I suppose it's time for all of us to heal and move on." As a gesture of peace, Eleanor handed Chloe a box full of memories Amelia had kept of their friendship. Photographs, letters, small exchanged gifts. It was an offering, an acknowledgement of her past mistakes. "She never forgot you," Eleanor said softly, "even when I tried to make her." Chloe accepted the box, understanding what this gesture meant to Eleanor. "Thank you for sharing these memories. They mean a lot to me." As Sophia excitedly showed Eleanor the shells she had collected, Edward and Chloe exchanged a look of understanding. The road wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, the future seemed full of possibilities instead of shadows. The first week after Chloe's return to their lives was like navigating uncharted waters. Everyone tried to find their place in this new family dynamic while processing the revealed truths. Eleanor, although she had given her initial blessing, showed moments of tension when she visited the apartment. Her eyes followed Chloe's every move, silently evaluating how she interacted with Sophia and Edward. "Sophia, have you finished your homework?" Eleanor asked one afternoon, noticing that the child was quietly drawing while Chloe prepared dinner. "We just finished it together," Chloe replied before Sophia could speak. "She has a science test tomorrow, so we reviewed the parts of the plant." "Ah." Eleanor adjusted her posture. Amelia was always excellent at science. She loved botany. "I know," Chloe smiled. "I remember when we classified leaves for our herbarium in 6th grade. Amelia always found the strangest ones." An awkward silence followed this exchange. It was the first time Chloe had openly shared a memory of Amelia in front of Eleanor. "You guys made herbariums?" Sophia asked, fascinated by this new information about her mother. Eleanor seemed about to interject, but she held back. Her therapist had recommended she practice letting go, allowing others to also keep and share memories of Amelia. "Your mom had the most complete herbarium in school," Chloe continued. "She even won an award at the science fair." "I still have it," Eleanor murmured, surprising everyone. "At my house. You could see it someday, Sophia." The child's face lit up. "Really, Grandma?" Eleanor nodded, her eyes welling up. "There are many things of your mother that I have kept. Maybe it's time to share them with you." That small moment marked the beginning of a gradual change in Eleanor. It wasn't immediate or constant. There were days when her old controlling attitude resurfaced, but something fundamental was transforming. For Edward, the transition also presented challenges. Although he had been the one to seek out Chloe, sometimes he was assailed by doubts about whether they were moving too fast. One night, as Chloe walked down the hallway towards the bathroom, she stopped in front of Edward's room. The door was ajar, and she could see him sitting on the bed, holding his wedding photograph with Amelia. "I'm sorry," Chloe whispered, stepping back. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "No, it's okay," Edward replied, gesturing for her to come in. "I was just reminiscing." Chloe sat cautiously on the edge of the bed. "It's normal, Edward. I don't expect you to stop loving her." "I know, but sometimes I feel confused." Edward placed the photograph on the nightstand. "As if I'm betraying her memory by being happy with you." "Amelia wanted you to be happy," Chloe said softly. "I know, because that's how she was. And I'm sure she didn't want Sophia to grow up with a father trapped in pain." Edward took her hand. "How do you do it? How do you know exactly what to say?" "I don't always know," Chloe admitted. "I'm learning, just like you. But I think Amelia is guiding all of us somehow." That night, for the first time, Edward slept without nightmares. Something in his conversation with Chloe had eased a burden he had carried for too long. For Sophia, the transition was perhaps the most natural. Children, with their amazing capacity for adaptation, often lead the way in healing processes. She quickly incorporated Chloe into her routines and began consulting her on small but significant decisions. "Which dress do you think I should wear for Lucy's party?" she asked one morning, holding up two options. "Both are pretty," Chloe replied prudently. "Which one do you like best?" "The blue one reminds me of the sea where we found you," Sophia said. "But the green one looks like the color you wore when you worked as a nurse." "Then either one would be perfect," Chloe smiled. "I'll wear the blue one," Sophia decided. "And you could wear something green. That way we match, but differently." Chloe was surprised by the implication that she would attend the party. "You want me to go with you?" "Of course. Daddy always comes, but he says kids' parties make him nervous. It'll be more fun with you." When Edward heard about this, he had mixed feelings. "You don't have to go if you don't want to," he told Chloe. "Kids' parties can be intense." "I'd love to go," she replied. "But are you sure? It'll be the first time the other parents see me with you." Edward hadn't considered that aspect. "You're right. It will generate comments." "I don't care about the comments if you don't care," Chloe clarified. "I think it's time to stop worrying about what others think," Edward decided. "Sophia wants you there, and so do I." The party turned out to be a turning point. While Sophia played with her friends, Edward and Chloe faced the curious glances and whispers of the other parents. "Is that your new girlfriend?" one mother asked directly while serving punch. "This is Chloe," Edward replied simply. "She's part of our family now." The simplicity of his answer, without specific labels but unequivocally inclusive, defined how they would present their relationship to the outside world. As the weeks passed, they established new family traditions. Sundays became cooking days, with all three preparing recipes Chloe remembered from her childhood or favorite dishes Edward had learned during his travels. Small conflicts also arose, inevitable in any adaptation process. Chloe and Edward discussed discipline methods, sleep schedules, and the balance between work and family. "You work too much," Chloe told him one night after Edward canceled a trip to the park to stay and review blueprints. Sophia was so excited. "I have an important meeting tomorrow," he defended himself. "Not everyone can work flexible hours like you." "It's not about hours, Edward. It's about priorities." The discussion escalated until Sophia appeared at the kitchen door, frightened by the raised voices. Immediately, both calmed down, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Princess," Edward said, bending down to hug her. "Chloe and I were just talking with energy." "Are you fighting like you and Mommy sometimes did?" Sophia asked innocently. The question surprised both of them. It was the first time Sophia had mentioned arguments between her parents. "Sometimes adults who love each other argue," Chloe explained carefully. "It doesn't mean they stop loving each other." "Exactly," Edward confirmed. "Your mommy and I argued sometimes, but we always made up." "Are you going to make up?" Edward and Chloe exchanged glances. "Yes," they replied in unison, smiling shyly. That night, after putting Sophia to bed, they had a calmer conversation about expectations and compromises. They were building something new, with no instruction manual, navigating between respecting Amelia's memory and creating their own path. What a beautiful progression of their family. What do you think the future holds for Edward, Chloe, and Sophia? What would be a truly meaningful ending for this story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Meanwhile, Eleanor continued her personal journey. During a particularly significant visit, she brought with her a box Edward had never seen. "I found this among Amelia's things," she explained, opening the box to reveal a broken necklace. "I think it belongs to you, Chloe." Chloe held her breath. "Our best friend necklace. I thought I had lost it during the move." "Amelia kept her half all these years," Eleanor said. "The other half must be yours." With trembling hands, Chloe took the piece. It was a simple silver heart, broken so that each half had an irregular part of the design. When put together, they formed a complete heart. "Hers is," Eleanor paused, visibly emotional. "With her," Chloe completed softly. Eleanor nodded. "I asked for her to be buried with some of her most cherished possessions. The necklace was among them." This gesture, more than any words, symbolized Eleanor's true acceptance. Not only did she recognize Chloe's importance in Amelia's past life, but she blessed her presence in Edward and Sophia's future lives. As the anniversary of the gala where they had reconnected approached, Edward began acting mysteriously. He had quiet phone conversations and secret meetings with Sophia, who could barely contain her excitement about whatever they were planning. "What are you two plotting?" Chloe asked one afternoon, after catching them quickly hiding something when she entered the living room. "Nothing," Sophia replied too quickly, exchanging a knowing glance with her father. "It's a surprise," Edward explained. "Just be patient." The surprise was revealed when Edward asked Chloe to accompany him to the same charity gala where everything had begun exactly 1 year later. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Last time it didn't end very well for you. This time it will be different," he promised, smiling mysteriously. The night of the gala, Eleanor offered to babysit Sophia, another symbol of her growing acceptance of the situation. However, to Chloe's surprise, when they arrived at the event, Sophia was already there, waiting for them in a small formal dress and a conspiratorial smile. "What are you doing here, little rascal?" Chloe asked, hugging her. "I'm part of the surprise," Sophia replied, exchanging a look with her father. The evening proceeded pleasantly. Unlike the previous year, Edward looked relaxed and healthy, genuinely smiling as he introduced Chloe to colleagues and friends. At one point, the music changed to a soft romantic melody, and Edward invited her to dance. As they moved across the floor, Chloe noticed that some people were watching them with approval. "Have they told you how beautiful you look tonight?" Edward murmured in her ear. "Only about 5 times in the last hour," Chloe laughed. "But I never get tired of hearing it." When the song ended, Edward didn't let go of her. Instead, he made a subtle gesture towards a corner where Sophia waited, holding something in her hands. "Chloe," Edward began, his voice suddenly serious. "Exactly 1 year ago, in this very place, my life changed forever. I thought I was losing consciousness, but in reality, I was waking up from a long dream of pain." Chloe felt her heart quicken as Edward took her hands in his. "Amelia brought us together in the most unexpected way, and every day I'm grateful you came into our lives. You not only saved mine that night, but you've taught Sophia and me to live again." With a fluid movement, Edward knelt before her, causing murmurs and exclamations of surprise among the attendees. Sophia quickly approached, opening a small box she was holding. Inside, a delicate ring with a green stone, the color of the sea, sparkled. "Will you do me the extraordinary honor of officially becoming part of our family?" Edward asked, his eyes shining with emotion. "Not just as Amelia's lost friend, not just as Sophia's godmother, but as my partner, my love, my wife." Chloe, overwhelmed with emotion, could barely hold back tears. Around her neck glittered the half of the best friend necklace, a constant reminder that her connection to Amelia endured even beyond death. "Yes," she finally replied, her voice trembling but determined. "Yes, I want to be part of your family." Edward slipped the ring onto her finger and stood up to kiss her as the attendees applauded. Sophia jumped for joy beside them, and when Edward separated from Chloe, he lifted his daughter into his arms to include her in a family hug. "Now we're officially a family," Sophia declared with childish certainty. "We always were," Chloe corrected softly. "We were just waiting to find each other." The next big test came when they visited Amelia's memorial together. It was a sunny, quiet day, the kind of day Amelia would have chosen for an outdoor photography session. Edward and Sophia had visited regularly, but it was the first time Chloe had accompanied them. Eleanor had decided to give them this private moment, understanding the importance of the act. As they walked through the serene cemetery, Chloe felt a mixture of nervousness and peace. When they arrived at Amelia's headstone, adorned with fresh flowers and a smiling photograph, Sophia stepped forward to place a bouquet of sunflowers, her mother's favorites. "Hi, Mommy," she said naturally. "I brought Chloe, but I think you already know her. She's going to marry Daddy, but she says that doesn't mean we're going to forget you." Edward placed a hand on Chloe's shoulder, giving her silent strength. "Hello, Amelia," Chloe said, her voice broken by emotion. "It's been so long. I wish we had had the chance to fix things, but I want you to know that I will take care of them with all my heart, as I know you would." Sophia took a drawing from her small backpack and placed it next to the flowers. In it, 4 figures were seen: Edward, Chloe, and Sophia, holding hands on the ground, and a shining figure watching them from the sky, clearly representing Amelia. "I drew our family," Sophia explained, "with Mommy watching over us from heaven." As they looked at the drawing, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves around them, as if nature were responding to their words. Edward looked up at the sky, where the clouds moved, forming changing patterns, and felt a deep peace he hadn't experienced in years. "She's with us," he murmured. "Somehow, she always will be." Chloe took Edward's hand with her left, and Sophia's with her right, physically uniting the family Amelia had helped create, even beyond life. Together, they walked back under the golden light of the sunset, towards a future none of them would have imagined a year ago, but which now lay before them, full of possibilities, love, and the quiet certainty that some connections are simply too strong to be broken, even by death or time. The breeze continued to gently stir the leaves over Amelia's grave, like a sigh of approval, a final gift from the one who had been the first thread in this complex and beautiful tapestry of intertwined destinies. What a beautiful and poignant moment. How do you feel about the connection between Amelia, Chloe, Edward, and Sophia now? Do you think Amelia would truly approve? Share your feelings in the comments. 3 years had passed since that day on the beach, when Edward and Sophia found Chloe. Time, that great healer, had transformed their lives in ways none of them could have imagined. The beachfront house they now inhabited was filled with light and laughter. Edward had personally designed the renovation of the old fisherman's cottage, integrating modern elements with the traditional structure. Large windows allowed light to flood every corner, and a spacious terrace offered spectacular views of the ocean that had meant so much to Amelia and Chloe in their youth. "Daddy! Chloe! Hurry up! The first guests are arriving!" cried Sophia, now a confident 12-year-old preteen, as she arranged the last decorations in the garden. Chloe appeared at the back door, her maternal figure highlighted by her advanced 7-month pregnancy. Her hand rested protectively on her belly as she proudly observed the preparations for that day's special gathering. "Everything looks beautiful, Sophia," she commented, admiring the paper lanterns and flower garlands that decorated the space. "Do you think Mommy would have liked it?" Sophia asked, a question she still asked occasionally, keeping Amelia's memory alive. "She would have loved it," Chloe assured her. "Especially those yellow flowers. They were always her favorites." Edward came out carrying a cooler. "Drinks are ready. Anything else missing?" "Just Grandma Eleanor to arrive," Sophia replied, scrutinizing the driveway. As if summoned, a taxi pulled up in front of the house. Eleanor Albright, now visibly more relaxed than years ago, descended with several packages and a large bag. "Grandma!" Sophia ran to help her, taking some of the packages. "Careful, sweetie. They're fragile," Eleanor warned with a smile. Her relationship with Sophia had flourished in these years, finally free from the weight of secrets and regrets. Edward and Chloe approached to greet her. The initial tensions had given way to mutual respect and, eventually, genuine affection. "How was the trip, Eleanor?" Edward asked, taking her suitcase. "Long, but worth it," she replied, looking approvingly at the house and garden. "You've done a wonderful job here." Eleanor turned her attention to Chloe and her prominent belly. "And how's my future grandson? Still kicking at all hours?" "Like a professional soccer player," Chloe laughed. "Especially at night. Just like Amelia when she was pregnant with Sophia," Eleanor commented, a memory she could now share without pain. She never let anyone sleep. Eleanor's integration into their new family dynamic had been gradual but constant. After many therapy sessions and difficult but necessary conversations, she had come to fully accept Chloe, not as a replacement for Amelia, but as an extension of the love her daughter had left in the world. "I brought something special," Eleanor announced, opening the large bag she was carrying. From it, she took out a set of carefully preserved baby clothes. It's Amelia's when she was born. I thought maybe you'd want to use it for little Leo. Chloe took the garments with trembling hands. The name chosen for their son, Leo, was a tribute to Amelia's late father. It's perfect, she murmured, emotional. Thank you, Eleanor. As the afternoon progressed, more guests arrived. Edward's former colleagues, Chloe's childhood friends who had reconnected since her return to the coast, Sophia's new friends from the local school. The house and garden filled with lively conversations and laughter. Who would have thought we'd end up like this? Commented Javier, Edward's former assistant who now ran his own architecture studio in the city. You left skyscrapers for beach houses. Edward smiled, watching his family interact with the guests. Sometimes life takes you exactly where you need to be, even if it's not where you planned. As a central part of the celebration, they had organized a small ceremony at sunset. Guests gathered on the beach, forming a semicircle facing the sea. Edward, Chloe, Sophia, and Eleanor stood in the center, each holding a paper lantern. Today we are here to celebrate life, Edward began, addressing those present. Not just the new life that will soon arrive in our family, but all the lives that have brought us to this moment. Sophia stepped forward, surprising everyone by speaking with confidence. 3 years ago, my family was broken. Daddy was sad. I was sad. And we felt like something was missing. She looked at Chloe with affection before continuing. Then Chloe came, who was my mommy's friend when they were little girls. At first she was my nurse, then our friend, and now she's my second mommy. Eleanor, with tears in her eyes, added. And soon they will be parents to a boy who will bring even more love to this family. Chloe, emotional, shared. I have 2 mothers, one in heaven watching over me, and one here holding my hand. And now I also have 2 families that have become one. Edward lit his lantern, and the others imitated him. These lanterns represent our connections with those who are no longer physically with us, but whose love continues to guide us. One by one, the lanterns rose into the twilight sky, carried by the sea breeze. Sophia's, adorned with small photographs and messages for Amelia, shone especially brightly as it ascended. I love you, Mommy, the girl whispered as she watched it drift away. Thank you for sending us Chloe. Later, after the guests left and Sophia retreated to her room, Edward and Chloe sat on the terrace contemplating the ocean under the moonlight. What are you thinking about? It's strange and wonderful how fate works, she replied, intertwining her fingers with his. Years ago, when Amelia and I drifted apart, I felt like I had lost a part of myself. I never imagined that the path to recovering it would lead me to you and Sophia. And to Eleanor, Edward added with a smile. And to Eleanor, Chloe conceded. Who would have thought? Edward. My worst moment became the beginning of my healing. The widower fainted at the party, and the nurse who saved him discovered something that chilled her to the bone. Chloe quoted humorously the title that once described their story. Sounds like the beginning of a soap opera. The best soap opera, Edward laughed. With the best ending. Chloe placed a hand on her belly, feeling her son's movements. It's not an ending. It's just a new beginning. In Sophia's room, the preteen looked at the stars from her window. On her desk rested a framed photograph. Amelia and Chloe as teenagers, smiling on the same beach where they now lived. Beside it, a more recent one. Sophia between Edward and Chloe on their wedding day, all beaming with happiness. The girl took a notebook and wrote under the dim light of her lamp. Dear Mommy, today we launched lanterns into the sky for you. Mine had your photo and a secret message. I hope you received it. Chloe says my little brother will soon be able to kick a soccer ball with me. We'll call him Leo like your dad. Grandma Eleanor brought your baby clothes, and Chloe cried when she saw them. Sometimes I still get sad that you're not here, but I don't feel alone anymore. Daddy smiles all the time now, especially when he looks at Chloe or when he talks about the baby. I think you sent Chloe to us. Grandma says you two were like sisters, so I guess that makes her my aunt, but I prefer to have 2 mommies, one in heaven watching over me and one on earth holding my hand. I love you forever, Sophia. She closed the notebook and placed it under her pillow, a habit she had kept since she was little, as a bridge between her and her mother. On the terrace, Edward wrapped his arm around Chloe's shoulders as they both gazed at the stars, knowing that among them also shone Amelia's spirit, forever connected to them through the love she had left as her most enduring legacy. The ocean whispered softly against the shore, the same sound that had accompanied Amelia and Chloe's childhood and would now lull the next generation. In that eternal ebb and flow lay perhaps the deepest truth, that love, like water, is never truly lost. It only changes form, finding new channels to continue flowing, connecting past, present, and future in a perfect and infinite cycle. What a beautiful, full-circle ending. We hope you enjoyed this journey of love, loss, and new beginnings. If you did, please remember to subscribe, like this video, and share your favorite part in the comments below. Thank you for watching.